Hi, I'm Pamela Strum. And for those of you who saw part one of this presentation, this is part two, and it came about from the presentation I did yesterday on the Global Acceleration of Ascension Virtual Summit, and my presentation that had to do with toroidal grids, the matrix, time, and perspective. And I had so much feedback from the presentation, and I had half an hour, so I was left with an enormous amount to present. And especially this subject of the matrix is something that is a healing energy that I've been working with for a few months now. And it's coming through as something of I do energy and healing work with people. I have two modalities. I have grid light healing and light years, in addition to working with people in a very expanded energy, and working with the matrix with people from the perspective of really stepping into that tremendous expanded perspective. So in the summit's presentation, I was left with so much more to say. So I wish to share this with you. And I'm sharing this information with you. Please, if you feel like it's something that would interest someone or benefit someone, please share it. Because the feedback I got is amazing from people. It had a lot of activation energy. So from people letting me know, oh, there was this missing link or this missing piece. And when you said this or showed this, it provided that to me. So I really believe we all hold pieces to activate each other into a greater expansion of unity consciousness. But I also heard from people who are suffering right now and experiencing a lot of pain, emotional pain, physical pain. And so I speak to all of you. So in the continuation of today, there's a part of, anywhere where I might sound like I'm teaching, I wish to do this as a sharing, because really you're allowing me to clarify what's inside of me, in addition to potentially waking up what is information that's already within inside of you, that's there already. As we're all being supported right now into a more expanded perspective, which is why it's a tremendously exciting time to be alive. There's a big energetic shift, and all of us are being supported from the universe. So also something really neat that happened after yesterday, a dear friend of mine who herself, she's this wonderful, talented healer. Her name is Lois Harrison, and she has many healing tools that she uses, but she also does a lot with sound and gong baths. And she contacted me, and she listened to my presentation and shared with me a link of someone who in Glastonbury, England, on the same day, she said different language, but you were both pretty much saying the same thing. And she shared this woman's link, and this woman spoke for over 40 minutes, and I listened to what she had to say, and I loved it and felt inspired. So I'm allowing what she said to also also inspire me today, because she said things in certain grounded ways as well that I wish to share with you. So I took notes because usually when I'm done speaking, a lot streams in, and I have set the intention for this information to be activating, to be healing, and for your highest and best good, and the highest and best good of unity consciousness. But then I finish and I say, oh, there was this point that was so poignant, and oh, I forgot, right? Because I get into a zone of sharing. So just to round up very quickly from yesterday, I talked about toroidal grids, an orientation of a vertical axis and horizontal axis, and the importance of the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, that brings energy and information to us in correct proportion for us to utilize and absorb and activate as souls having, as spirits having a source energy, having a human experience. And of course, if this, if it's not, if the energy isn't brought in, if you can imagine this in looping of infinity of the energy and flow, there's a lot of potential for the energy to get scrambled and distorted. But the golden ratio brings it in for the exact precise way that we are able to digest the information and energy. And along with this presentation, you know, there's the Merkaba that overlays us, that star system of our unity point, part of our unity point of the divine feminine and masculine, that is used in ancient cultures and mythically for time travel. But it's this incredibly powerful device, so that we have this vertical orientation of the Merkaba, the upper point, and divine feminine lower point, helping the flow of our toroidal infinity grid. But then here's the energy that creates of the Merkaba on a horizontal axis that runs through the center of this horizontal axis, that shows up as potential, pure energy potential. There's an aspect of timelines where our vertical axis, that expression of source and Gaia energy within us, has access to a horizontal axis. And I want to take a moment, just like I did in the first one, to simply drop into your heart, because this information right now might seem a bit, some of you might feel like it's too much, but please stay with me, because I'm going to share practices for you to literally be your genie of taking yourself out of the bottle, taking yourself, expanding out of the matrix. And I wish for you to have that information now, because of so many of you who reached out to me, that it is, I really wish to be in service to you, as honoring you as your own source being. So simply drop into your heart space, your awareness. So your heart space, and breathing into your heart space. So your heart space is different than your heart organ or your lungs organ. It's this space in your chest, and it's that part of us that, if you think of the images you've seen of a fetus developing in a mother's womb, and I love this because it shows this connection where we're connected in our brain and our gut, and we form around this pulsation of our heart, that part of us that is the source expression of us as beings of our spirit beings, that really infuse, that energy infuses the very formation, the sacred geometrical structures of energy flow that bring matter in to form us in a human body. And then, you know, as you see the pictures, and all of a sudden the brain and the gut are separated, but that pulsing, the pulsing of that energy is around us, and that's your heart space. So the heart is pumping, but that space is that fusion point of our source point. So whenever you catch yourself too much in your brain, which I'll get to the brain, I'll give it its due, come into your heart and listen from your heart. You know, if you imagine your heart energy flowing up, you know, there are ears right there connected, and also connected to your gut as well, so that you always operate from your point of truth. So now I'm going to continue. And if you feel like this is so much information, drop into your heart space, please. And that's one technique and tool to use on a practice on a daily basis. And it gets easier and easier and faster as you do so. So in looking at our emotions, I use the word matrix, and I'm hesitant to use it. I said I did not see the movie, but the matrix is this, what was revealed to me, and this is my perspective. So however you receive this information and energy, please be open to how you receive information. And as I said, we all hold keys and we all activate each other and contribute to unity consciousness. So in this perspective of a flow of energy, and this flow not having its own Merkaba, but influenced by the energy of that Merkaba that overlays our energetic being, including our human structure. And that flow of energy where we access timelines. And in the movie, the way that the artificial intelligence and the brains that control the matrix controlled people to trap them in this matrix was through apparently heat and their electric currency. And information that was given to me that I shared in the summit presentation was that our emotions play a critical role. And the reason is that our thoughts are like that electric current, that impulse, and that provides a certain energy frequency. And then our emotions, and our emotions that are it seems so tied to our thoughts, are like that magnetic pull. So we have a thought that has an emotion, and those emotions will very rapidly pull proof to our human brains of proving our thoughts. So we have a thought, and that emotional impulse will pull in further experience to match that currency. And that can work to our advantage as to expand, but it can work and to manifest and create, but it can be quite a disadvantage if we are unaware of our thoughts and we think in ways that create a lot of density and lower expressions. And then our emotions attached to that and those stories we create for ourselves bring further proof. And if you can imagine in a matrix trapping system, if we have our vertical axis of us as divine sovereign beings and this horizontal overlay of another grid axis and matrix, the tangle of energy. And I'm simply showing you one example. Then imagine that we are connected to each other in unity. We're connected to Gaia, the higher dimensional grid system of Earth, and we're connected to the universe. So there are many layers of a grid. There are many layers to a matrix. And if this energy is stuck and not flowing on this horizontal axis, or if you look once again, another golden ratio, this bliss point of flowing, of pure potential and flow, or if it gets jammed up and it doesn't bring forward that energy to us in a fluid way, and we get jammed up. When we get jammed up and we get stuck, it's another scrambling point of discordant, distorted energy. And that's what traps us in the matrix. So if our emotions, as we work through this time to a point of expansion, our emotions are like the magnetic pull of our emotions and this tingling that happens. When we transcend that, and transcending it, and we ascend, transcending not being bypassing, it's truly passing through these openings to a higher expression of our emotions that bring us to that point of bliss, of free flow, that reconnect us to our expanded perspective. So this is the most techie part of this, and I offer this to you for those of you who are listening, who are actually working from already a tremendous expansion and an understanding of what it feels like and what it's like to go in and out of a matrix, and in and out of this energy. And it's neither good nor bad. You know, that's a label. It is the energy of potential from which we operate as a human. Excuse me, I'm going to have some water. And for those of you who also wish to drink water if you're feeling thirsty right now, keeping yourself hydrated conducts energy, right? Water conducts energy. It's important to drink fresh water. All right, so I've laid that groundwork. I want to also share with you, I wish to share with you an expression of the matrix in math. And this leads me into something because it's how we're taught about the matrix in school. We're not taught about the matrix from this quantum field of energy flow, this potential of infinity flow of all potential, even of accessing, all timelines in the now moment. My hands are very active for all of you. My hands are really buzzing on fire. So I do energy work, and I consider myself a clear conduit of source energy, and it often expresses through when I'm working with clients as through my hands. So sometimes I give myself the energy, but if I hold up my hands to you, I'm offering you energetic support while receiving this information. So in math, in school, a matrix is expressed like a grid, but it's not expressed as this fluid flowing grid that goes in all, in a very fluid lines of energy. It's expressed in a linear way, and that allows our left brain to absorb the information. So a linear grid, and we've all been exposed to it. So you might have a line at the top, and let me use fruit as an example. It might say apple, oranges, pineapple, whatever. This is for you an example. And then you have another line going this way, and it might have nutrients, a source of the fruit. Is it a tree? Does it have a seed? Does it have a pit? And our brains categorize in a very linear fashion, and then we compare. And we can compare this, in a really linear way. And that's fine. It is the domain of our left brain. It's how we encounter our world and make sense of our world. And in school, if you're certainly in the public school system, I grew up in a public school system, you are taught things in an incredibly linear way. And it's as if you get even, like in geometry, I work with sacred geometry, it's like a freeze frame. You're taught a shape. And really the power of the shape in sacred geometry, which is used in, let's say, architecture uses sacred geometry, and they use that term. It's fluid. So the left brain has everything, very linear. And that is part of the trapping of a matrix, is to condition us from the time we're children, and we have that fontanelle opened at the top of our brain, which allows us to receive universal energy and interpret it. So kids very frequently have these incredible capacity of imagination and creation, and they receive information in a very expanded way, in a very energetically expanded way, and there are no rules or limitations. It's a wide open field, and that's the domain of more of our right brain. So once again, it's not good and bad. It's a unity of both our right and left brain. So our right brain receives this incredible energy, this energetic interpretation, and allows us to have these experiences, including there's this aspect of our emotional experience that is a high expression that allows us to step out of the matrix. So we clear those portals between the density of the trapping, and we expand to this expression eventually of bliss and energy flow. So breathe into your heart space, please. So in these definitions, what I ask you is, who's creating these definitions of, fruit and the categories and potentials of, we start to put things in a hierarchy. And there's the danger in the trapping of the matrix, is to take away that creativity. And I've noticed from a very young age to introduce linear thinking to children, even as early as preschool. So while their fontanelles are still open and there's this immense capacity, as you know, opposed to cultivating that enormous creativity, we immediately want children to go into the linear aspect of their brain. So I ask you, who is creating those definitions? Is it something you learned in school? Is it something that you were taught by scientists? And that, that desire for repetition and proof is the domain of the left brain, where you ask a child and they see things as wide open and well, what do you mean proof? It's, you know, there, I saw it, I heard it, I imagine it. So once again, the unity and the flow of the information activating the right brain, really stepping into that point of creativity. So question, who's defining this for you? And the answer is always for you to drop into your own sovereignty and really always question, you know, who, what, you know, what is this information? What is this coming through for me? Is it society's definition? And you know, society changes its definition constantly. So are you to constantly have different beliefs? And it creates within the matrix a scrambling, because you're not in yourself. You're giving your sovereignty to outside of yourself and your truth outside of yourself. Because the reality is that if there's a fluid flow and the information's flowing in a correct proportion as we are created to absorb this information, it's all there. And you may easily activate your Merkaba. You may easily jump these timelines, pass through portals and access this information. It's there, it exists. It's the structure of our universe. It's the information that's within our universe, and it's accessible to all of us. And that's the kind of school, let's have children grow up in that type of school, right? That they have the information there. So, and with each of our individual superpower, we interpret that within our world, our playing field of a matrix of potential and fluidity and source energy of us all operating. We interpret the information that comes through for our highest and best good, as opposed to giving that away. So in that connection, I ask you, is a furtherance of who isn't giving you these definitions. Where is your mind? Where is your consciousness? Is it your brain? Are you saying it's right here? This is your processing zone. This is the processing tool of your body that processes your experiences. And it shares that information with the rest of your grid system, whether that grid system is your connective tissue in your body, where information travels rapid fire, you know, your nervous system in your body, yet another grid system in the human expression, or does it tap into the energetic interpretation? So I can tell you, this is a processing center. And this is why you wish for it to be activated to its full potential, right? They say we use 10% of our brain. Scientists say 10%, that's very much of a left field. Guess what? If you unify it with the right side of your brain and you access the full potential. So your consciousness and that awareness really comes from your source perspective. And there's a source perspective of you to get in touch with your source perspective in your heart space. And that connection between your spirit and your human body is your breath. Because as you know, if you stop breathing, you exit your human body, you die. Although your energy doesn't, right? Energy is not destroyed. That part of you, that's your spirit, your source being. So your source being. And that unique pulsation of you that has decided to imagine that you're separate from source, because you're not, you're always connected to source energy, is right within you. And that pulsation of your heart that defines your unique frequency, your unique pulsation of energy, is what has formed this processing center, and also this incredible capacity for intuition and instinct within your body that gives your message center, and that part of you that's your gut, right? It was connected in the beginning of your formation. And it's always connected energetically. That's something you can cultivate. So I ask you that question because we're going further into this to talk about your expansion and exiting the distortion and discordant energy that traps us in the lower expression of the matrix of the third dimension. Okay, next part. So I am going to share a book that I read as an example. So at this point, come into your heart, and I wish to ground this information for you by giving you an example of a book I read, and it is called Stroke of Insight, A Brain Scientist's Personal Journey. And it was by the woman who wrote it, that is Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. And Dr. Taylor is a brain scientist, and she, as a young woman, tells this incredible story. So she has all this information from a scientist's perspective of the brain. And she's in the shower one day and recognizes she's having a stroke. And she was having, I think, a hemorrhagic stroke. She was bleeding in her brain, and she could recognize it. And the stroke affected the left side of her brain. And she was able to, it's an incredible book. I strongly recommend for you to read it. It's this phenomenal, it really drives home the perspective of the left and right brain. I think she even did like an interview on like Oprah Winfrey. So this is going back a very long time ago, but you can find her book. You can, look it up online. And so Dr. Taylor found herself at a full right brain perspective, because the bleeding was in the left hemisphere of her brain. And what she found was that she was losing her capacity to think logically, think in a linear fashion, but she did manage to get herself to the hospital. And so then her full experience was from her right brain. So without her left brain interpretation, there were no, I'm getting chills sharing this with you. My hands are on fire. So, okay, I'm going to hold my hands up. So here's healing energy. There were no definitions. Her definitions were taken out. And she was conscious from her right brain perspective. So every doctor or nurse or being that came in and out of the room in an attempt to bring her back, she experienced them energetically. And she tells these amazing stories. So some beings, people would come into the room, and she would experience them as really dense, like yucky energy, and she could feel them, and she could access information that she had no way of logically explaining, such as an access to their thoughts, but she experienced them through their how they felt as a human, their energy, as if she could pick up their frequency. And so those very low frequencies that felt awful to her, and she knew that she wished for certain energies to not be in the room with her. And some energies were of people were very high frequency, very expanded, and she felt them as coming in as this incredible loving presence, but she sensed their true pureness in helping her. And the story I wish to convey today is her mother came to help her mother, but her left brain did not know this person. there was no left brain interpretation of even a concept of mother. That concept of this is my mother coming to help me. Oh, good, it's my mom, you know? She simply recognized the energy of someone, this huge energy coming in, expanding over her energy, and this energy of this being climbed into bed with her and embraced her. And the little piece of her left brain that was active knew that this was something very important in her life, because this energy immediately, without hesitation, came right in of complete embrace, giving her compassion and love and this joining, this unity. But her brain wasn't able to later to recognize that's my mother. That came later as her hemisphere healed and she was able to get back those structures of a linear grid system and add those definitions back on. So I share this with you because both the left and the right brain, both the yin and the yang, both the divine feminine and masculine within us. So within consciousness of the way we play as individual pillars of light, of source being, and we have this overlay of the matrix within our consciousness, we have agreed to certain definitions as unity consciousness. We have agreed to have experiences with each other as separate expressions of source. We've agreed that we've come into this world through our mother's bodies, through the portals of our mother's body into a human form, to experience life and to have the blessings of our senses to allow us on the highest level. But with distorted, discordant energy, we get trapped and we have very low frequency experiences. And that's just part of my sharing with you of how to ascend or be our own genies out of the bottle, to pop ourselves out of this discordant, distorted energy of the matrix, to realize we're in this incredible expansion of incredibly high frequency energy that's supporting us in this journey, our journey outside of the third dimension, that duality that locks us into on this horizontal axis, the trappings that anchor us, where we can't get through those portals of higher expression. We feel trapped, we feel dense, and people have been expressing to me their suffering, their illness, their worries, their panic, their depression, their anxiety, and that traps us, that doesn't allow us to pass through the portals. Yet we, as our sovereign beings, can clear that like this, snap, very quickly, pass through those portals and clear the way for our ancestral line, for our children, for our progeny. And we can clear the way. Now, they are also source beings. So a client of mine, actually it's not a client, it's someone on my email list who's expressing to me his fear for his children during this time. So these time that's an illusion that we think of as a linear. This person, as he clears his own energy and passes through the expressions, those magnetic our emotions, that magnetism that calls forward our experiences immediately, as we change our thoughts, as we change our emotions around our experiences, we then call a high frequency expression of our emotion and experience and very rapidly expand and ascend beyond and outside of the matrix. It's part of our journey as human beings to transcend the duality of the third dimension and step into a higher dimensional experience. And we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to exit our bodies, because we're being supported by the universe in a more crystalline expression of our cellular structure to hold more light. And therefore, this structure, this playground, becomes fluid. These proportions come in correctly from the universe, bringing energy that allows us to hold it, as opposed to what we've all experienced in our life of having these moments of joy, where we've been in the now moment, where we've experienced true joy and life feels blissful, joyful. And maybe we've had the blessings of having that last for what seems like an extended span of time, only to, or maybe it seems fleeting, only to drop back down and experience ourselves as back in the low frequency, back in the fear, back in the panic. And this is why I said in my part 1 of this, talking about this subject, as why to please watching mass media. Please, be careful and mindful of what you watch as entertainment and what your children watch as entertainment, social media, mainstream news, music that has very low frequency. And I call it stoking the fear machine, because these expressions that keep us in a state of fear, that show us images of horror, of terror, of lack, of disease, and we witness it and we have a thought. And there's that electrical frequency. And from that thought, we have emotions, fear, panic, depression, anxiety. And we're shown this. If you pay attention, if you give your attention and focus upon, not all, not all, but a lot of movies, shows. I see it with what my kids watch all the time, and it makes me, I'm like, turn that off, turn that off. Music that has a low resonance as opposed to having a higher frequency expression. When you give your attention to this, when you give your attention to mainstream media and mainstream news, you lock into those emotions, and then you magnetically draw in proof of that into your universe, into your playing field. And instead of having this beautiful unity consciousness expression, it becomes mass consciousness of low frequency, dense expressions. And we then join together, creating fear, anxiety, depression, panic. We join together, creating a world that is bleak. Have you ever in your life seen someone walking around and they have a smile on their face? They're smiling. You walk past someone, they're smiling. And you're like, what's wrong with that person? It seems weird. And then you see someone who looks glum, blank, and you think that's normal. That seems normal to you. And you don't question that. Where in reality, it's the flip of that. We have ourselves as expressions of bliss and joy. And sometimes we've been taught to find that suspect. We don't find that suspect in a little child expressing imagination, creativity, invention. But in an adult, we're like, what's wrong with that person? Why are they making that sound? Why, I don't know. That's not how it's been done. Where's the proof? And we shut it down. We shut it down in ourselves, not even realizing we're shutting it down in ourselves, but we shut it down in others. And we create ourselves as a trapping in this matrix that's inescapable to us. Yet it's not. It's always, 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 we hold the keys. We're that genie that can, like this, pop out of the bottle. It's part of our journey as human beings to take ourselves to a expanded perspective outside of that holographic expression of our life. And this leads me to something else. Okay, so what is it that creates the tangling and the distortion of this discordant energy that traps us in the matrix? It's the distortion of the energy that even flows to us. Sometimes it can't even flow to us, it's so dense. Of restoration of that golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence if you're a mathematician and you work with the symbols of numerology. And it's also our emotional state being stuck in these lower frequency expressions of emotions. and we give our source energy away. Instead of turning within ourselves, we look for the answers outside of ourselves, outside of, to what? To what? You know, maybe we reach to source creation energy, realizing it's truly within us. Within us is that connection to source all the time. Remember, if you hold this pillar of creation and we let ourselves earth and ground into the support of Gaia, and the deeper we energetically connect ourselves in this, what's considered this maybe below stream of energy, just like a tree, the deeper the roots of the tree, the more strong and the higher it can grow. The deeper we go into below, pulling up the energy into this part of our toroidal grid, as we pull energy, we can reach higher and higher, pulling the energy into our expression of source, creating this beautiful stream within this vertical axis of our expression. So I imagine myself flowing in this stream of beautiful source energy, washing away the density within me, allowing myself to be supported by this energy of Gaia that's always there. And I'm in this beautiful stream of radiant light that clears the density of the energy that no longer serves me, and to let it go. So onward. So this holographic illusion that we create when our energy is a low, and we're the ones feeding this illusion, and we're the ones telling ourselves stories around this, pulling in thoughts and emotions that get clumped on top of each other and get knotted up and tangled, as within our own energy field there's this knotting, until we add so much density and we say, look, there's the proof of the suffering. Look, there's the proof of the disease. Look, there's the proof. And it's all a left brain that's disconnected from our right brain, that's disconnected from ourselves as source being. And then it plays out in our matrix, the overlay, and we trap, and we teach our children the same perspective. We show, we prove, we validate ourselves on a very low frequency. We're trapped. We're trapped in the game. We're trapped in the matrix. Sometimes we pop out for a moment only to get sucked back in to the game that feels like it's crushing us. Now I'm going to tell you something, and thank goodness science is caught up with this and can prove this. The crystalline structure of our body, that is our cells, it has been shown, and epigenetics is talking about this, simply by thinking and feeling and sending a cellular structure, crystalline structure, dense emotions and thoughts, hatred, disconnection, anger, doubt, fear. That crystalline structure becomes distorted and it contracts, trapping into that matrix. When energies sent to that cellular crystalline structure of acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, love, bliss, inclusion, and we have these thoughts of, magnificent. That cellular structure, that crystalline structure expands. That's what's going on in our body. It expands. And then it activates. And activates to its full potential. Yeah. And its full potential, so that it can then hold this expanded high frequency expression and draw to it magnetically pull in the experiences of that expanded perspective, abundance, joy, peace, love, forgiveness, gratitude. And there's space. And when there's space, energy flows. And when there's space, the communication system within the universe, it frees up the matrix, it creates healing, it allows more light and energy, light codes to come in and activate and create space. And we're creating space and allowing others to flow freely within this energy field of the matrix, the hologram, to where they pop outside. And we can do this for our children. We can do this for society, healing society. And then we hold that perspective where we say, we're in our hearts and we see the holographic illusion overlaid. And once you realize it's an illusion, let the game begin on the most expanded way, because you are then free. So, some solutions to this is stepping into your sovereignty immediately. You decide your experiences. You're making the decisions. When you give your energy to others, they're not necessarily for your highest and best good, or maybe, and not in some way that's, you know, has evil intentions. It could simply be they're not aware. Why on earth would you do that? Like, little children assume adults know so much better than they do, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of situations. So you own your sovereignty. And when you own the energy, it's only by taking that perspective and power can you change it or do something about it. If you own it, if it's yours. And you can then decide what's for your highest and best good. Remember, if you live in the United States and you're listening to this, this country is founded upon the Declaration of Independence. And I beg you, it's not that long of a document. Take a look at it and look at the list of grievances. It's the way that this country was founded of saying, no, I disagree with that. Not my universe. That's not happening in my universe. My universe, this is what I'm creating for my universe. So when you look at this and you encounter some creation of density in the matrix and you recognize it as an illusion where of falsity, where it's simply density that's been added, but you can expand your energy field and you say to that energy, not in my universe, this is what I'm creating in my world. This is what I wish to experience now. You get to do that. Also, I'm going to bring this down to something more, bringing it more practical. Question everything. Question everything the way a child questions. What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Why? Although I encourage you to ask questions other than why, because you might get a third dimensional answer. And how the universe will provide, like, what is this in my universe? What's going on here? And you will get your answer and trust it. So that you might hear people who inspire you, but trust yourself on the inside. And as you practice that, getting your own answers, you further gain your power, your superpower. You awaken your superpower of creating your universe. So ask, question, because what we've been taught, left brain, what we've been taught, how our lives have played out is not necessarily for our highest and best good. It's not necessarily the most expanded perspective. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's quite a dense perspective. And I'll give you an example. This is better than this. This is more than this. Rush, 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 hustle, hustle, hurry, hurry, hurry. Not enough. Can you feel that constriction? And we build our lives. We go from childhood where we are taught, indoctrinated very much into a left linear way of thinking from such a young age. And then we get put into a system where we rush and rush and rush. And no wonder in this day and age, people get depressed and they're afraid and they're thinking, I can't do this. I don't even like this. I don't want to do this anymore. And tragically, we all know people who've chosen to step out of life. So you question everything. I was talking to my friend recently, asking some questions, and we said, follow the money trail in society too. Ask those questions. What is this? What is this going by in the sky that looks like an expansion when a plane goes by? What is this that's being done to our food? Because to me, doing healing work, I really focus on what affects ourselves immediately, our health, mentally, physically, spiritually, but also physically, right? We want to feel great in our bodies and give us a chance. Shouldn't all food be organic? Why isn't everything organic? What about our water? There is technology to make all water this amazingly purified. Like, what's going on? What's going on that, what's going on? Question. Anyway, biggest, practice going within. As within, so without. I know not everyone loves to meditate. But really, if you're not able to go inside yourself, as within, so without, the answers are within you. You will create your external world based upon what's inside of you. Based upon, there are your thoughts. There's the magnetism of your emotions. So you create this, and your body gives you messages all the time if you simply tune in. And then you project that holographic expression outside of yourself, where you live what's been used as a metaphor on a stage of drama. And yeah, there's a clue. If you're feeling high drama, that's a clue that you're in a matrix, and to clear that out. So going inside of yourself as yourself from a source perspective. And breathe. Your connection from yourself as your source perspective to your human body. Breathe that in right here. These are all practices. And these are all practices that they're so simple. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. And I don't want to say that it put any time on it, because we're being supported by such expanded energy that things are happening for people. Boom. Expansion. So there's no set time on this, although the more you practice, the easier it is to live from this perspective of going inside yourself. So inside meditating, inside can be as simple as watching your breath and quieting the monkey brain, the thoughts. That's okay. A thought goes by. Practice. The more you practice keeping a clear mind and coming in, connecting into your heart space, connecting into your gut. What's your gut telling you? What's your intuition telling you? Do you ever ask yourself that? Feel your body. Is there tension? Breathe. The more you go in, the more you give yourself that attention and heal yourself. Give yourself the love. Heal your own wounds. And quiet your thought, your heart space. Watch your breath. Spend time every day focusing on the now moment and the more you practice staying in the now moment, the more you access miracles. And give gratitude in the now moment. That's a really expanded frequency. So when I catch myself in a space where I feel like I've been sucked into that matrix, I have an experience and I've bought into it. Maybe I've seen an image on TV that's haunting me. Maybe I have heard someone's story and I've aligned myself validating their story. When I validate someone's story, sometimes that anchors it and adds density for them, as opposed to giving them space and compassion to express themselves, and it loosens the density. I buy into it and I feel it. I take it on. There's so many ways. There's so many ways that people get trapped in the energy of the matrix. So I sit and I do these practices in my heart space, own my sovereignty, breathe, quiet, now moment, gratitude. I read someone's story over these past days who's been in communication with me, and their story seems tragic and sad, and the person kept offering me more and more evidence of why they're so afraid of life, why it's so awful. In the now moment, because there are people who are suffering, come into the now moment and practice. In my now moment, if I turn and I look outside a window, it's right over in that direction, we had a snowstorm and it's a beautiful sunny day today. And when I look at the sun shining on the snow crystals, it looks like sparkles, billions upon billions of radiant, sparkly crystals right outside my window. I can be thankful for that. Thank you. I can be thankful that I can see that. Thank you. I can be thankful that I am able to express myself to you, that I have clothing on my body to keep me warm, that I have so many beautiful essential oils that I get to share with incredible beings, all of you of light. We've come to play. And we've come to inspire each other and share our gifts with each other. And I thank you for that. So when I watch gratitude exercises and it's like, oh, list, 5 things you're grateful for. That's left brain. Check, check, check. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, what's another thing I'm grateful for? Left brain. Pick one thing and feel it. Feel it, because it's the feeling that then pulls in more proof, more of that high expanded frequency, giving you more and more and more. Abundance, that's how abundance gets created. Gratitude, thank you for everything. Thank you, source creation energy. Thank you, universe, for all that I'm given. And then guess what the universe does? It gives you more. Abundance. Practice. This is a practice, right? Because then your left brain's going to get triggered. Well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Into the density. Practice. This is very simple, simple, simple. And remember, let yourself feel the support of the earth. The more you bring yourself into your body and allow yourself to receive the support, the higher you go. If there's a higher, right? The more you expand out and you access that high frequency. Now, what about past traumas? So people, clients, yes, I have my modalities, grid light healing, light years. I'm an acupuncturist. I work with herbal medicine. I'm a licensed herbalist. I work with people in their Akashic records, and I spend many sessions helping people transition out of trauma or suffering, and the information always comes through in a very expanded perspective to empower the person themselves in their own sovereignty. Okay? Heart perspective. Bring your thinking into your heart. It's all connected. The brain's not going anywhere. It's a processing machine. And let that free flow of energy be a communication system in your body. So let's say someone's in some past trauma. So right away, this is a practice, very fast. Recognize yourself as source energy. Come inside, come into your heart and breathe. Feel yourself, breathe in your heart space. You're cultivating your source perspective. Drop into your heart, relax. Anything that presents itself when you start looking for proof of how terrible your life is the trappings of the story of the Matrix. All that exists, and just relax your brain, because your left brain's going to start to wig out when I say this. So it's the right brain and into your heart space. It's the domain of an expanded higher dimensional perspective. This is trappings of timelines. Timelines don't have to trap if there's a fluid flow of energy. But if you catch your thoughts looking for the evidence of why your life or that person has done so many awful things and why they're so terrible and why our country, oh God, help us, and why, you know, this is going on in my life, this is bad and this is bad and this is bad, you're locking yourself into a maze of tangled, distorted, discordant energy. All that exists is the now moment. Now. Compassion for yourself, for all of your experiences, that you survived all these experiences. You've played in the denser expressions of the third dimension, and you're ready. This is waking you up. You're ready to exit into a higher dimensional expression. You're ready to come out of the matrix. It's a gift. And in that gift, as soon as you do those practices of breathing and coming inside yourself and recognizing the holographic illusion, when you look at other sentient beings and you recognize that their source, an expression of source energy as well. I don't care what they've done, what they've played, the illusions that you've agreed to, or you've pulled these experiences to you to wake you up. So whatever you imagine, it's not them. It's not me and them, this and that. Center point. It's that balance point. Thank you. Wow. I'm awake and I'm ready to stop and allow this to dissolve and expand out. And you see the illusion. So recognize, regardless of what that being has done, you choose as a divine sovereign being to let go. Let it go. It's an illusion. You dissolve that tie, those energy cords that have locked you into a creation with someone. Even if the person's no longer on the planet, you can do this. I work with people to do this a lot. And it's beautiful. It's practice. It takes practice, but I promise you, it's easier and easier and easier. And we're in the realm of forgiveness. Because really, in forgiveness, you're releasing those lower expressions. You're creating space within the matrix, within the grid lines for yourself, for your children, for humanity, for all sentient beings, for the unity consciousness. You're helping to create unity consciousness, creating healing on the planet. You're creating the space, and forgive yourself, because even if you haven't been aware, forgive yourself, because it hasn't been possible until this now moment. It's a glorious time to be on this planet. Thank yourself. And choose to let it go. Now, just last week, I had an experience where, boy, there was someone and I saw them doing something and I'm like, ah, there they go again. They're at it again. But then I stopped and went inside myself, because as soon as I went there, boom, pointing, judgment, boom, trapped in that matrix. And I stopped and I said, whew, what am I doing? Do I really want to anchor into this matrix again? Do I really want to go into those thought loops, those emotional loops, those trappings that then bring more proof of how stinky that person is, how awful they are? But what does it do to me? What does it do to my cellular crystalline being? It goes, eh. And I said, oh, stop. And I use these tools, come inside myself, breathe. It's an illusion, breathe. And sometimes it's so challenging. And that's where healing work. You know, sometimes really you do reach out to healers, you know, energy workers. That's a label I put on myself. And I'm simply, you're your own healer. You're your own healer. Simply sometimes we all ask for help, and we have people, you know, people have tools, you know, try this, and oh, that worked for me. That was great. I worked with this person. I feel so much better. It helped me so much. And whew, and you realize you've come to the other side of that experience. So forgive yourself. Forgiveness is really about release. And I'll visualize myself releasing the experience with that person, allowing those things that tie us to dissolve. It's my choice, and it can take practice and it can take time. But know, as you hold a more expanded perspective, how fluid it is. And it's simply for you to play. So I want to play in things that bring bliss, right? Okay. I think I made that point. All right. So really, there's nothing, and I said this in the previous video, there's nothing for you to do. It's being, practice being. You're a human being, you're not a human doing. So you don't have to do anything. Even if you are exposed to someone or something that's right up against you, it's showing you the energy to heal. It's giving you an opportunity. You might choose to speak your truth as you're connected to your heart, speaking from your heart. I've said to people, not in my universe, you're not doing that in my universe. You need to stop. And then they're like, what? What? Okay, no, I've gotten tough. So it's not about like, oh, good person, bad person. I'm recognizing. But when you see that aspect of that presentation, simply sometimes being present with that person and breathing and releasing of the creation, releasing the creation rather than pulling it in and looking at it so dense, widening out and holding the perspective of the illusion and the holographic. There's another divine being. It's an inner perspective. It's an inner perspective. And in your gut, it's an inner perspective. There's another divine being. Whoa. I'm judging them. I'm creating this. Breathe. Let go. Simply be. Simply be. Sometimes simply be means you need to get away from that person or experience, right? You want to keep yourself safe. Keep yourself safe. Until you really transcend, not bypass. It's simply showing us a choice to make other choices of other opportunities that maybe in the past, maybe our ancestral line has trained us to think or be a certain way, and we're making other choices, allowing light and expansion to come in, allowing healing to come in. Okay? Forgiveness. Gratitude, forgiveness, release. Those are the magic keys. Those are the keys that bring you to a place of being, popping you out of the matrix. The realization that you're the genie who's creating your universe. Practice, yeah? Like you would practice in an instrument. I'm sure there are some beings, I've seen videos of them even, but I've also heard of them that immediately pick up an instrument. They're usually children. Pick up an instrument and they play like Mozart. I don't know, they play divine music, divine frequencies, divine chords. But usually you practice. Most of us practice, but we all have innate superpower gifts. And it's from this perspective of being and being within that we then share within this energy field our greatness. Yeah. Because in this sweep up of an expanded perspective, it transcends time. It transcends the constructs. Have you heard that gravity is a construct? I know your left brain wants to panic over that. It's really the magnetism of what we draw to us. And we have right there within us, by a certain perspective, the capacity to draw in the abundance of the universe. So the benefits of this practice are peace. Peace. Why enter the drama? You're gonna do everything you can to stay out of the drama. You're gonna enter into states of bliss when you practice gratitude, appreciation. Then you'll notice the universe keeps giving you more of it. It's beautiful. Like truly, it's beautiful. Yeah. And release that forgiveness. Forgive yourself and be compassionate to yourself, because you simply maybe in other timelines didn't know any better. Maybe you were trapped, but you can create the space and the portals, shine the light so others can see where they're going. See, not see, 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 know here, know in your gut, know, activate that right brain of balance and bring it into you. It's fun. Then you play in the universe, right? Okay. So practice letting go, gratitude, forgiveness, release, and you bring yourself to that point of freedom. And I'm going to share a story, and I almost didn't share this story, but I'm going to share it. And this is for those of you who are suffering now, and for those of you who have, your bodies are maybe filled with dis-ease, discordant energy. Yeah, very few of us are immune to having things go on with our physical structure, our humanness, our cellular carbon-based structure. Really, as we're tapping into our crystalline structure and expanding, and we're forgiving, and we're going within, and we're holding states of bliss and gratitude, we activate our crystalline structure, and we hold more and more and more light, and we're living in the now moment. And this is the point of miracles, and this is healing. This is healing regardless of what happens with our human structure. You know your energy, your source point is not destroyed. And it opens up portals to pass through of opportunities of all kinds of creations. And as I have said, this is the perspective, this now moment where miracles happen and where you can change the crystalline structure of your body, because you're constantly regenerating and you become new again. You are new. You invent yourself as an expanded being with a higher perspective, field of miracles, regardless. And when you catch yourself, well, there's this pain. Come inside and be with it. There's this storyline. Decide to release it, forgive it, thank it, let it go, command it to dissolve. Create something new. Allow the light to fill the space that's created. You know the universe loves a void. It will fill it. And boy, do we have the fear-mongering going on. The fear-mongering, just waiting to fill that space you've created, and they fill it and go, whoop, come back in, dense, 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 expand, release. You fill the space with light. So here's a story in honoring to those of you who are experiencing suffering. It was the 1990s. I was reading a magazine called Alternative Therapies magazine, a naturopath made me aware. She's like, this is my favorite subscription I get. I've let go of all of my subscriptions but this magazine. And I started to read this magazine, and I've been doing energy work for decades. But I was in a more traditional business. I was at the time working as a researcher for herbal supplements. I'm kind of energetic, right? I'm a licensed herbalist, so it was really cool. But I was in the business of it, business aspect for a company. And this naturopath, it rocked my world and it led me further along my path. And I remember this story of someone who was dying of cancer. And this person expressed her phases of going through the disbelief and the rage and the grief, all the emotions, trying to save herself, trying to heal. But the technology wasn't necessarily there, the tools, the energy, simply having her physical structure attended to, her cellular humanness, realizing that there's also the mental body, the emotional body, the energetic body, our spiritual body, our spiritual energy. So she got to the point where she was definitely dying. And she was sharing this article, writing it literally on her deathbed, because she said that she got to a point where there was the void all around her, darkness, complete darkness. She knew this was it. And in the last week of her life, where she shared this story and had someone write it down, she came to the conclusion all of that rage and anger, all of her disbelief and fear didn't exist. What? Says the left brain. What are you talking about? Trapped, trapped, trapped. It didn't exist. It's not real. It's an illusion. It's the holograph. And she was grateful. She was grateful that she realized it. She was grateful to realize, at least in her life, that it wasn't real. And this allowed her to let go, to let it all go. Let the creations go, because life forced her to go inside on this journey and discovered. It forced her, and she did recognize. She did recognize, and she got to that expanded perspective. So you too, regardless of what is going on in your life, and I promise you, by holding the expansion, you get to the point of healing. I take clients on this journey, but my clients are their own healers. It's their choice. They are sovereign beings connected to source, creation, energy. We all are. It's their choice of what they choose to focus upon, what their electric frequency, currency is, what they magnetize. We are all magnetizing, whether we're doing it with consciousness or not. Consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. And with that, I leave you with profound gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You have the power. You create your life. It's your universe. You're an expression of source creation energy, playing with your bliss. Okay, everybody? My wonderful, wonderful, wonderful friend, Sabina Visaraga, Melina, I love you, has said to me, she started to say to me in 2002, you are the warrior. You are a warrior on the edge of your consciousness. A Native American expression, a Native American expression. You are a warrior on the edge of your consciousness. And I believe that. So when I catch myself, catch yourself, it's a practice. Play, bring in the light, hold the expansion. And you will notice life shows you its magnificence, its glory, and you go inside and you recognize your magnificence, your glory, your truth, your divine sovereignty, your source.